Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. We have many things to talk about in this morning's video, and we've had a lot to talk about over the last, I would say, 2 weeks. But here we are, about to break down another winter storm as we leave the other one behind, even though it's still impacting areas of the country right now. But our main focus is going to go towards this winter storm for areas further south, the southern plains, the southeast, and this could even impact the mid-Atlantic into the northeast as we get into this weekend. So the first thing we'll focus in on is the southern plains. We'll compare all model guidance. We'll show you some fancy graphics showing snowfall and ice totals, and then we'll do the same exact thing for the southeast, and then we'll break down the setup as we go. After we get done doing that, we will talk about today's weather. We'll get back to doing that. I know I left you guys hanging with that, with speaking on your daily forecast. I always try to end that in the video with that, so we'll do that once again in this video. So there's a lot to break down, a lot to talk about, and I think there's just going to continue to be a lot to talk about going forward. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. So let's get going. What we're going to do here is we're going to start off in the southern plains, like I mentioned, and we're going to start this off with Wednesday morning. So here in the next 48 hours, if you're confused about the timing, WED 8 Jan, so January 8th, Wednesday, that's where we're at. And then we'll do the same thing for the southeast. So let's start off with the European model from overnight. What is the latest information? Well, the blue is the snow. You're going to see pink come up on your screen. That'll be freezing rain. And then you'll see orange. That'll be sleet. And then you'll see green, which is rain. So let's get going here. And as we are getting to about, Wednesday evening, we're starting to get, it's kind of a wintry mix breaking out across Texas. And then we start to get into Thursday morning. And I think this is when the meat of the storm begins for Texas specifically. Once again, the pink is freezing rain, orange sleet, blue snow, and here it is. We got a wintry mix breaking out across the heart of Texas. We got winter weather moving all the way up to Amarillo, starting to move into southwest Oklahoma. And it looks like it starts off as a wintry mess in, say, the Dallas-Fort Worth area right here. All rain for southern and southeast Texas. And, the latest Euro definitely wants to hit you guys hard with some freezing rain at first, like in North Texas. Once you get out in the western Texas, Oklahoma, it's all snow. But then it ends as it looks like some more cold air crashes down as some really heavy snow. And this is starting to get into Thursday evening. We got heavy snow, see the darker blue, starting to get all the way up into Oklahoma City. We got freezing rain beginning to show up in northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas. And then we take it all the way to, say, this is like the middle of the night, Thursday night and Friday morning. It's just an all-out winter storm across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Texarkana area, just kind of a wintry mess of sleet, freezing rain, snow. Little Rock, it looks like this is starting off as a wintry mix, but it could switch to all snow, and then this begins to move into northern Mississippi, like Memphis, Tennessee. You start off as snow Friday morning, and check out the snow getting all the way up into Kansas. Snow falling on top of all the snow you got on the ground. I think some areas picked up 1 to 2 feet in Kansas. Look at the snow getting all the way up to Missouri. Heck, even St. Louis, Kansas City. But you keep going here, just an all-out winter storm Friday morning across Arkansas, and then it starts to move into Tennessee, and you even got light snow all the way up to Chicago. Pretty wild stuff here. It looks like this storm almost loses some steam as it moves eastward. Now, I will say if we back all this up and we look at the latest 06Z, which is running right now, and I think we have the entirety of this run. Let's see what it looks like. It doesn't look much different. It looks like more of a wintry mix into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It looks like, it looks about the same to me. It doesn't look much different. Freezing rain. If you compare, for example, this graphic, which is Thursday evening, let's see what changes. It actually is a little bit colder. So you see on the 06Z, it ticked colder. So that would bring more ice into Shreveport. And it's still snowing like crazy Thursday evening in North Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth. All the way up to Oklahoma City. And then you keep this going. Here comes a snowstorm into Memphis, Little Rock. It's interesting to me that this is, if I compare this with that, let's compare it. Okay, that's a colder run. You see how we're going to this is the old run. This is the new run. So the 06Z is coming in certainly colder. So we'll have to watch for that. Northern Mississippi getting hit with a winter storm. Seems like that's just been the footprint of these winter storms the last few winters. I don't I don't know what's favoring that, and I'll speak more on it towards the end of this update, but it seems to me that that's just been the more favorable thing the last few winters. But if you're looking at the GFS, we're starting to get into Thursday morning. Here comes the winter storm breaking out across the heart of Texas, North Texas, and it's just colder, I would say. So this is really all snow for Dallas. I mean, but it gets winter weather all the way almost down to Austin, San Antonio. You got an ice storm breaking out across northern Louisiana. We really need to watch out for that. And then here it comes. I mean, all freezing rain for northern Louisiana. I mean, it's starting to get close to, say, Jackson. Jackson's right down there. You're just south of that freezing rain line. And then you keep going here, and this is just pretty much a snowstorm for all snow for Little Rock and to Memphis. This is getting into Friday morning, and then the storm continues to head on through. I mean, so what do you take from all that? Well, what I take is, southern Oklahoma, winter storm. North Texas, even central Texas, a winter storm. I would say northern Louisiana, you need to watch out for more so an ice storm into areas of like north central Mississippi. And then once you start to get into Arkansas, northern sections of Mississippi, closer to Memphis, western Tennessee, this turns more into just a wintry mess, but it could be more snow. So if you're comparing model guidance as far as the Euro Ensemble, okay, one of the best things you can look at, that is an incredible snowfall average for, say, North Texas. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Euro Ensemble run is wanting to put an average of 6 to 7 inches of snow on the city. And this combines 50 members. All 50 members are obviously showing just about something for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or the ensemble mean would not be so high. But look at that and say, okay, there's an incredible signal for a winter storm for North Texas. And I mean, even a few inch snowfall mean into Oklahoma, several inch snowfall average into southern Oklahoma. And then, I mean, it's a pretty loud signal into Arkansas, even northwest areas of Louisiana. But I will say, this only shows snow. There's an ice footprint down here too that's going to show up, and I'll show you that here in a second. But there is it lessens once you get into northern Mississippi, western Tennessee. But it is pretty loud in Texas, pretty loud signal. Now, if you look at the GFS Ensemble, which is the newest one we got, it is loud too. Not quite as just alarming, but it's still, I mean, 4 to 5 inch snowfall, meaning the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A little bit more to your west, and a solid signal, just like we mentioned, North Texas, even central Texas, into Oklahoma, Arkansas. Heck, there's even an impressive signal into southern Missouri. A 2 to 3 inch snowfall, meaning Memphis, Little Rock, 3 to 4. So it's a pretty impressive signal. Now, you look at the Euro Ensemble as far as ice. This kind of averages on all 50 members, and if there's an ice event and say 40 of the members, it averages them all up. Remember, a 1/4 inch of ice is starting to get into ice storm criteria type ice. So that is showing up here in central Texas. It's showing up here in northern Louisiana, kind of eastern Texas, and even getting into Mississippi. There's obviously an axis of freezing rain just south of the axis of heaviest snow. So someone's going to get an ice storm into here. Now, if you compare, and we can actually just look at the latest run. Look at that shift south. Like, this is the old run, right? This is the new run. You see that shift south in the snow on the latest Euro? But either way, both of them hits the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the latest Euro, with over a 1/2 foot of snow. It's not a forecast, but I could see it happening. This obviously has the makings for a big-time winter storm for North Texas. And that's a solid signal for snow into Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, point south, point southeast. This could be a major winter storm. And then you look at, say, Arkansas. This will show surrounding states also. This is what the latest run is showing for you folks. And, several inches of snow in Little Rock, especially north, where Oklahoma and Arkansas connect. I mean, this is showing up as over a 1/2 foot snowfall, event. But northern Mississippi, several inches of snow. Memphis, 4 to 5. These are the areas that have just been hit lately. And, reading comments and reading people's stuff, I know some people out in Arkansas, and they're just baffled on why people say that we haven't got snow in forever. And if you're from Dallas to Little Rock to Memphis, back to Oklahoma City, heck, even down to Shreveport, you really cannot say that you haven't gotten any winter weather as of late, because you really have. You've gotten some pretty huge winter storms since, I would say, dating back to 2020. You really have. So I don't know what's being favored out here, but hey, if you're a winter weather fan, I know you're eating it up. Now the latest GFS, same thing, right over North Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, axis of heaviest snow, and then looking at more so Arkansas, and it wants to dump 7 inches of snow on Memphis and several inches of snow in northern Mississippi. And yeah, so remember, this isn't showing ice, and I'm not going to show you ice on the operational runs because it overdoes it significantly. I mean, big time. Like, I'll even look at it here. It wants to dump 3/4 of an inch of ice in northern Louisiana. I'm not saying you can't, don't rule that out, but it tends to overdo it. So now let's talk about the Southeast. All right, and we're in view of the 06Z Euro now, so we'll see what changed. I haven't even looked at this for the Southeast yet. So once again, look up here. We're actually going to start this off. Let's start it off with, this is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, January the 10th. Here's some timestamps up here and then up here. So here it comes, and if I'm already comparing this with the OOZ, it's not much difference. It looks like it's moving in faster. That's the only thing I see. Here it comes. So this is interesting to me. Now let's compare it. It's just faster. That's really all it is. So all of a sudden, you stop it here Friday morning. We got freezing rain breaking out as far south as Birmingham, Alabama. Freezing rain almost all the way down to Meridian, Mississippi. We got snow. This is mainly looking like snow for Tennessee. You go one more frame here. This is a nasty ice storm for like north central Alabama. We got freezing rain moving into Atlanta at this point. Extreme northern Alabama. This is like snow, Florence, Huntsville. And then you go another frame here, and this is when the storm just kind of looks like it fizzles out. I don't know if I buy this, but we have to see if this trend's more amped up. And then we go another frame here, and you see how the precipitation is lightening up. Like, for example, this is bringing a swath of moderate snow into the heart of Tennessee. And then here it is moving into the Carolinas, hanging on to some freezing rain around Atlanta, points north into North Georgia, brings a light snow event across the southern Alps. And this thing just really fizzles out. It's kind of a weird scenario here. And then we keep going. We're getting into like the wee hours of the morning, Saturday morning. We have some light freezing rain in the upstate of South Carolina, North Georgia. And we got snow, light snow, I would add, up into the Triad and Triangle and just the Piedmont of North Carolina. And you keep this going, and it's just a light event. And it's wild to me because I'm about to show you the GFS. It shows something totally different. So if you look at the latest like OOZ, it's about the same thing, but it's warmer. So the latest 06Z is colder, but you're still just not getting a lot of precipitation. If you actually look at temperatures here, for example, that is a brutally cold drizzle in Columbia, South Carolina. And then you look at the OOZ, not quite as a brutally cold drizzle in South Carolina. But it is a colder run, so that's interesting. Now, let's break down the rest of the data here, and then I'll kind of go into something that I've been kind of thinking on over the last several days with this event. Now, one thing with the GFS, it's more amped up. There's more precipitation. And we take it into, let's back it up. This is into Friday morning. We got heavy snow getting all the way up to Nashville. We got icing into northern Alabama, Mississippi. Heck, it starts off as sleet and snow into North Georgia. Friday morning, we got snow moving into southwest North Carolina to the Cumberland Plateau. And it's weird to me because what happens is it looks like it kind of does what the Euro does initially. It's almost like the precipitation hits a brick wall in the western areas of the Carolinas. This is sleet in northern Georgia. This is a band of moderate to heavy snow into Tennessee. And then it's like we got some light snow Friday afternoon breaking out across western areas of North Carolina. Now, I will say this, guys. And I think yesterday was a great example of it in northern North Carolina with a band of snow that moved through. It's going to be cold all the days leading up to the storm. So I would say light snow anywhere would not have a hard time accumulating. For example, like Nashville to Memphis, back to even Dallas, Little Rock. This isn't going to be one of those events where it takes 2 hours for the snow to make the ground white. It's going to be cold leading up to the storm. So anywhere that does get winter weather with this event, it's gonna stick like it ain't nobody's business. I mean, it really is. But you keep going here, brings this area of light snow into western North Carolina. We got moderate, the more heavier snow into Tennessee. And then it's like the first band of precip doesn't get its act together, and then it finally starts to blossom, and we get this icing event breaking out across the entire western half of South Carolina, freezing rains breaking out across northern Georgia. And it's not a whole lot of precipitation with this. What's interesting, but this is still a light to moderate winter storm across North Carolina, South Carolina. We got this band of heavier snow up here near the NCVA line, and this would bring an icy mess. Now, what's interesting to me is the precipitation begins to blossom as we get more into Saturday. So freezing rain is still just ongoing in Raleigh, points east and west, all the way to Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and then another area of precipitation blossoms here. And this is something we have to watch. So on the GFS, it wants to develop another round of moisture like Saturday afternoon. This is still a cold rain for the southeast, but I'm telling you, it's in the 30s cold. From Atlanta to Columbia, down to Montgomery, it's cold. But look at the snow on the colder side. That's something to watch. And in fact, the cold air tries to catch up. It catches up all the way into Charlotte to like Raleigh, and it turns into a snowstorm at the last second for the central and eastern sections of North Carolina into southeast VA. And that is a new scenario showing up on the GFS. For example, if I look at the old GFS and what it showed, okay, it's more amped up with the first round of moisture. Way more amped up. Totally different run. Gets a massive winter storm into the mid-Atlantic, and it's done. You look at the latest GFS and how different it looks. Yeah, that's a totally different scenario. So I kind of skimmed through the comments because I don't have the time to really stop and read all of them when it's this busy until I can sit down for a little bit, which is typically in the afternoons at work. But what I will say is this: I've read some comments saying, what's up with the wild model swings? And I will say, I will agree with you here. Normally we have wild model swings and the medium to long range, but we're getting closer now, and it's pretty wild to me that we're getting wild model swings like this. Now, I will show you the Canadian and the Icon for the Southeast, because there are some big differences. The Canadian is just normally has a cold bias, but it is just cold. The Canadian has an ice storm all the way down to Macon, Georgia, Augusta, Columbia, South Carolina, Atlanta, up to Charlotte. This would be a crippling ice storm. So it is definitely just a more high-impact winter storm for Georgia, the Carolinas. And I mentioned this before. I really think there is the potential for an ice storm across the board with this. Someone's going to just get a nasty ice, and it could be along the I-20 corridor. And then you look at the Icon, and you look at the final frame, okay? And this is for like Friday night and a Saturday morning. The final frame is showing an ice storm also for like the Midlands of South Carolina, up to Charlotte, up to Greenville, Spartanburg, back to Atlanta. And this is as far out as the run goes. It stops right here. So it's like you got a battle between the Icon and the Canadian, the GFS and the Euro. But what we know is the GFS and the Euro are much more reliable models than the Icon and the Canadian. But it is interesting to me that we're still getting these just swings. There is definitely no models coming together right now, which is absolutely unreal to me. But if you look at the latest, say, this is the Euro ensemble, okay? You can obviously tell where the footprint of snow is, and it lessens when you get into Tennessee. Looks like it tries to spike again, say, in the mid-Atlantic. There's a signal for snow in northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, even North Georgia, and then certainly I think it's going to be cold enough for most of Tennessee for whatever falls to be all snow. It's just how much heavy precipitation do you get up here? 1 to 2 inch snowfall mean up here? And then it just gets different once you start to get into the Carolinas. Once again, this doesn't show ice. There could be ice on the southern section of the snow, but you still got over an inch snowfall mean in Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg area. Just it's a tough one. This is a tough one, and I don't know if we have the 06Z that's ran yet. Let's see. Let's go to this. and yeah, it's ran. It doesn't look much different though. It really doesn't. Let's see. Let's compare it. It did nose south. I want you to watch this. Let's look at the run prior. Watch this area right here, how it nudges south. So there's a nudge south for really, and just ignore this. This is for what's going on right now. There is an interesting little nudge south. So that's something to certainly keep an eye on. But this is obviously a signal for a winter storm to me. And another thing I'll notice here is it looks like it brings a little bit more snow into Tennessee on that latest one. Now, what about the latest GFS ensemble? Yeah, I mean, it's still a pretty impressive signal for Tennessee and Kentucky. I mean, you got a few inch snowfall average, but it does this weird thing once you get into North Carolina and the Carolinas where it kind of just buckles up and then goes sideways right here. It tells me that I think there's some members that are just lack of moisture. I think that's more so what it's driven off of. But northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, even up into Kentucky, the southern apps, maybe even upstate South Carolina and the western sections of North Carolina, I really think it's going to get some sort of winter weather event out of this. But, you look at the footprint of ice here, and you can see it kind of along the I-20 corridor points north of a signal for some ice. And, I mean, once, for example, a few 100ths of an inch of ice is showing up for Atlanta, and then you kind of go up here and you even look at, like, the Mid-Atlantic, which shows more of the Carolinas. If it would come in for me. All right, let's see, and stop it right there. Now, all this up here is for what's going on right now. But if you look down here, there is a signal for ice showing up for sure. So, if I'm comparing like individual model guidance, and I have no idea why the 18Z is showing up. That's weird. Okay, so this is the OOZ Euro as far as how much snow is showed, which is pretty much pathetic. It doesn't show a lot at all. Just like dusting amounts, maybe an inch or so in the Mid-Atlantic. And just, that's about it. It shows a swath of accumulating snow from Memphis to Nashville, and then it lessens once you get into eastern Tennessee. But, if you look at that and you compare it with the latest 06Z run, it blossoms the snow in northern Mississippi, shows more snow into northern Alabama, shows more snow into Tennessee. You compare that with this again. See that shift south and with more precipitation. Now, for the Carolinas, it doesn't change much, but it does bring just winter weather further south. So that's interesting to me. Something we watched today especially. If you look at the latest GFS, it's just kind of funky. It brings accumulating snow. This really isn't. There's nothing really unusual about this. Heavy snowstorm into Tennessee, really northern Mississippi, southwest Tennessee, and definitely Arkansas. And then even northern Alabama wants to dump a few inches of snow, but it just kind of jumps areas of the Carolinas, and then it blossoms it again in like eastern North Carolina, central North Carolina, and then southern VA as it fires up that winter, kind of that coastal low after it pulls out. So that's an update on that. If you're talking about the energy in the atmosphere, guys, and we've been breaking this down like crazy. If you look at the latest, say, GFS, this is energy number 2, this is energy number 1, and you'll watch how this kind of comes down with this, and they kind of come together. Okay, let's talk about the energy first, and then we'll talk about cold air. And watch how that energy from the north kind of dives in, tangles up with this energy, and then it kind of begins to phase and turn into a stronger storm system, I would say. Latest, GFS, not as strong, but turns into a stronger system, and you can see how those areas of energy wrap up, and then they kind of move across the south. And with cold air around, of course, you get a winter storm out of this in the south. You can get this all day, but if there's no cold air, it wouldn't be a winter storm. But there is. So this energy dives in, and there's a winter storm. Now, if you compare that with, say, let's even look at the latest Euro. The latest European model, the energy kind of comes down here, but it doesn't fully phase. As you can tell, the energy comes down here, tangles up with this energy right here. But then again, it kind of just gets locked in, and it gets heavily tilted positively this way, which means this is a weaker storm system. And it really doesn't eject eastward. Instead, it leaves a lot of energy behind. This turns into a really fat, no, actually flat, set up here. And it, like I said, it just leaves this a large amount of energy behind, and it just is a weaker storm system. So, you know, we're still trying to figure out how juiced up of a system we're going to get, especially for the southeast. Now, if you're speaking on the cold air source, the reason that say Dallas is getting a snowstorm, a winter storm, and like Charlotte, Columbia, Atlanta is barely even getting ice, you know, yet alone snow, is because this system digs down properly at the right time. You know, we're getting a nice cold air feed in from the north. The system comes in and gives kind of an injection of cold air into this. This mixed with the fact that there's just still a lot of cold air settled in over this area, over this lower pressure. This is our storm system coming together. For the eastern U.S., this big blob of green and blue right here is our true cold air source. It's throwing cold air down into here. But I want you to watch as this kind of just heads back out into the Atlantic. Right as our system begins to move in, okay, system is moving in, our cold air source is kind of starting to move out. But still throwing in cold air. It's still enough of a 50-50 low up here to throw back some cold air east of the Appalachian Mountains as our system begins to move in, but it's still just heading out. And that mixed with the fact that you need some energy coming in from the north to kind of put an injection of cold air into this. That would help too, and it kind of does, but it just doesn't in proper timing. So that's an update on the winter storm. We'll continue to pump out updates on that. But breaking down today's weather, winter storm just raging on across the mid-Atlantic. You're waking up to a winter wonderland across the mid-Atlantic. Still got this back-end snow coming down. Heck, this might start to wrap down and give some snow even down to like the mid-south today. You guys might double dip before it's all said and done. But, you know, this is what's going on right now. Energy out west, but not a lot of it. If we're speaking on, say, watches, warnings, and advisories, we still have a ton of winter storm warnings in the pink. Winter weather advisories are in the purplish shaded colors. I mean, they extend almost all the way down to Charlotte. But a lot of these will begin to get dropped from west to east as we move later on. And all these colors right here are cold weather advisories. So there's a lot of cold air that's going to move right over all this snowpack and ice storm stuff out here. So this snowpack that's falling, and the snow that is falling, and the snowpack on the ground after the storm heads out, folks, this is certainly going to hang around. I mean, it is just going to be locked in place. We do have winter weather advisories in like the Denver area, and then we zoom back out, and everything else is about normal stuff. Now, if we do look at watches, warnings, and we look at the threat of any kind of severe weather. Let's move this out the way. There is a risk of severe weather down here for the southern sections of Georgia and North Florida. We could have some severe weather down here today. There is a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. So Tallahassee, Valdosta, Jacksonville, Gainesville, down to the Bend of Florida. You do have a 2% risk of a tornado today. Now, speaking on the southeast, the threat of some severe weather will be with this line of storms. This will swing through, impact North Georgia, get all the way down to central Florida, and then, you know, this area of showers and storms will head off the coastline of the Carolinas and Georgia. And then behind this, we'll have some snow flying around once again later on this evening in the D.C. We're not done with the storm. And then maybe some snow tries to get all the way down to Virginia Beach, Norfolk region. And then this system heads on out. And we're done with it. And we have a cold rest of the week ahead. And then obviously we start to watch to our west with this winter storm. The Northeast, heavy snow will continue. Some snow will try to get all the way up into Connecticut. Definitely Long Island, New York City. I think it'll be snowing for most of the state of New Jersey throughout most of the day. And then the main chunk of precip moves out, and then kind of the upper low will move through, and this will drop some more snow. It'll be colder, some more cold air in all levels of the atmosphere filtering in. So this will put another couple inches of snow on the ground as it moves through the Delmarva later on tonight. And then we'll get some snow showers and stuff that'll kind of pivot back through into the interior sections of the Northeast. The Southern Plains is quiet, and you guys have been quiet for quite some time. But just like I just mentioned, that's about to change a lot. Now, I will say We are going to get some accumulating light to moderate snow across the Denver area, points south. This will bring some light snow. It's very cold, so this won't have trouble accumulating all the way into the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So the north central U.S., just some lake effect action. Definitely more of your unusual tilt to the lake effect snow band that's kind of tilting into Chicago throughout the day, which is good for you guys if you're a winter weather fan. You guys have just kind of been ripped off as far as winter weather lately. But we get into tomorrow morning. Overall, very quiet weather day across the north central U.S. And then we look at the western U.S. and just some snow showers in the higher elevations of the Rockies. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. There's not a whole lot of energy out there until it gets into the southern sections of the Rockies. Temperatures, brutally cold, very, very cold. I mean, the highs are probably going to struggle to get above freeze. This is what I'm talking about. I mentioned this earlier in the video. Very cold days out ahead of this winter storm that's on the way for the southern tier of the country. I mean, your highs are only going to be in the 30s for Monday. It's not going to be much better the rest of the week. So the ground is going to be very cold before the winter weather moves in later this week. So you're not going to have trouble accumulating any kind of winter weather, whether it's sleet, freezing rain, snow, once this winter storm begins to move into the southern sections of the country. And then out west, this is what you're looking at, brutally cold in the north central U.S. So I'll wrap it up with this, guys. And I was going to do it at the end of the actual breakdown of the winter storm. But for my folks in the southeast, some of y'all are probably frustrated, especially if you live in like along the I-20 corridor, from, I don't know, say Birmingham, Atlanta to Columbia, maybe all the way to southeast North Carolina, and heck, probably even the Greenville, Spartanburg area, Charlotte, and many other areas I'm forgetting to mention too. You're like, dude, how in the world, and this is maybe just more so me thinking this, but I know there's at least some frustration. How in the world is like Dallas, Shreveport, Louisiana getting winter weather, and then this cannot translate east into Atlanta and Columbia and Charlotte? And trust me, it's frustrating to me too. I kind of went to bed last night, and it's sad because I'm a 33-year-old man and I'm getting upset about the weather, but I'm passionate about this, and it's like, dude, why does the atmosphere keep doing the same thing? Like, why can't we get some snow? Heck, maybe even just some sleet pellets in my neck of the woods, and I'm really just speaking of central South Carolina, but there's a lot of other people that think the same. And my answer is I don't know. For whatever reason, the atmosphere has been stuck on like a 45-degree angle across the south. And what I mean is, if you kind of, I'm just going to look at this really quick and zoom out here. What I mean here is, and just ignore this, is it seems like, I'm going to draw in the blue here, it seems like our cold air presses just keep coming down like this. So basically all your cold air kind of just gets slung down here, and this actually causes the ridge to flex a little bit like that. So this brings warm air, and then there's plenty of cold air in this area. So this makes these low pressures kind of dive down, and then they kind of head too far north over here. But I don't know. It would seem like with such an excellent pattern, transport of cold air, we could time things up a little bit better. But for whatever reason, I'm going to draw a line here. For whatever reason, it just seems like these areas right here continue to really double dip. And I'm going to and I'm just speaking of the South. That's why I stopped in Virginia. It just seems like these areas right in here continue just to get crushed winter after winter since about 2020. And I'm not sure, because it seems like when I was a kid, and a lot of the old timers remember back in the 70s and 80s, this happened a lot. And I don't think it's super uncommon. It just seems like it's happened a lot as of late. But I remember, like, when I was a kid in the early 2000s, when I would look on the Weather Channel and I would see that it was snowing in Dallas, it was almost, I would say, a lock that you were going to get snow to translate to Jackson, to Birmingham, to Atlanta, to Columbia, and definitely points north of this arrow I just drew. Now, it hasn't been doing that lately. And I just think we're just kind of stuck in this atmospheric pattern. I'm not sure, but it is frustrating. I'm frustrated for myself here in Columbia, for my people in the Southeast. And I hadn't even read the comments. I don't even know if people are complaining, but I'm complaining, right? So I'm not quite sure what's going on, and what we need to get snow here, a widespread snowstorm in the Carolinas. But it it just seems like, other areas are definitely getting a clean winter storm where it takes just an act of Congress just to get an ice storm for like the Carolinas. And really, we don't want an ice storm. And I'll admit, it'll be interesting to get a little bit of freezing rain just to switch some things up. But we really don't need it, as far as, the Western Carolinas dealing with Helene and stuff like that. If we had to pick between ice and snow, I think we'd probably pick snow because ice is going to bring down trees and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll end up with that. I know that's just 5 minutes of me crying like a baby. But it is frustrating. I'm really hoping, and I really think there'll be more opportunities. I really do. And I'm hoping as the winter goes on, it's still early in winter, that there'll be some more opportunities and that the atmosphere can find a way to do something a little bit different. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day and stay safe out there with this ongoing winter storm. God bless.